Hello everyone, it is Mark, the Crazy-Eyed Gardener, and I'm back once again with my second video of my top 10 reasons for gardening. I'm in the backyard today and I've got the pups out. I'm actually in a short sleeve shirt, probably more for dramatic effect than it really is that warm. I'm also wearing, I don't know if you can see, but a red hat and an orange shirt, and that's because I love bright colors. I'm a big bird watcher, bird photographer, and I think part of that is just because I love the color, especially when I lived back in North Carolina, back in Ohio for about 20 years. A lot of the eastern type songbirds are very colorful, and I've always liked color. I'm actually even known kind of for at work wearing some probably outlandish colors, like the bright yellows, the bright oranges. I do have my companions today. There's Charlie in the middle. He's the big one. He's our Euro Basset. This is Annie Mae. She's our female Euro Basset. Believe it or not, she's only about 6-7 months. And then you'll see our little girl, Susie. She is an American Basset, all AKC registered. And these are the ones that we're raising. We're going to be breeding. So again, check out Bailey's Basset Hounds if you want to see more about these crazy dogs. All right, so in the first video or the last video, I talked about the top 10 reasons, but I only used 5, and I talked about a couple honor mentions. I also talked about how I came up with my list. So today, let's just jump right into the second of the 5 primary reasons why I'm gardening. The first one is I am a teacher at heart. I love to learn myself, but I'm not an avid reader. That's one of the issues for myself. I'm more of a do-it person, get my hands dirty, learn by pictures. I think that's why a lot of times I like YouTube. I mentioned that as one of the secondary reasons last time. I think that's why I like this, because I love watching someone else because it's pictures, right? It's just moving pictures versus me reading their blog or something of that nature. At the same time, you have to read, right? We have to learn. And I will say that I will read some for enjoyment, just not avidly. I don't even know if that's the right word. I'm a math type guy versus an English. So I'm not an avid reader, but I've got a couple books. So learning includes reading books. This is one that my kids got me for Christmas this year. I've got one about the all-new square foot gardening. And so that's one of the things I want to do in my garden. Well, I need to learn about it, right? So I'm going to be reading that. But notice, and I think you can get this just in the books as well, but I got the ones with these binder ring type things because I don't generally read as much as I will study. And I am into that because I love the learning. And that is doing. It's writing things down. It's highlighting things. And one of the other ones is I just got my first one yesterday. This one is Johnny Selected Seeds, is a seed magazine. And I was listening to Gardner Scott, and he talked about how much information you can get from the seed catalogs. And I've got a couple in the house, and I've got to travel next week down to Florida for work, and I'm going to take this with me, and I'm going to read through it. It's easy reading, but I could highlight some things maybe, but look at the things that I want to grow and learn a little bit more about them. So in addition to learning myself, though, is sharing our experiences, right? The successes and the failures with our fellow gardeners, our fellow brothers and sisters around the world. So we do want to share experiences, and I do like to teach. I love to learn something new, get excited about it, and then share it with someone else. That's teaching. Really, I mean, that's all teaching is. It's sharing what you've learned with other people. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's not necessarily like you would do to a 5th grader or a high school kid or in college. It's not that type of teaching. It's sharing that information, learning, gathering, and telling others about it. But that's the 6th one, right? So that's the first one of this second 5. On the last one, I also mentioned feeding my family. Well, one of the other things I want to do with our garden is feed these guys. One of them's right behind me, chewing a stick, I think. I don't know if you can see him, is right there. That's Charlie. They love carrots. And I'm trying to introduce things like broccoli and cauliflower. They weren't too happy with that one yet, but they do love carrots. And I know there's going to be other things, maybe watermelon that I can hopefully grow. Strawberries they love, blueberries they love. I want those in my garden. Again, is it cheaper to go to the store maybe to buy some of those for these things? Yeah, it might be. But again, I'm sharing it with my family. These guys, these three, they are part of our family. They're as much of our family as our children are. That's kind of how we love our Basset Hounds. So that's another reason. This is another very important one. And so this is number, what is that, 5, 6, 7. This is number 8. Number 8, there we go. Hopefully you can see that third finger. And that is to be a little bit more self-sufficient. I don't mean where we don't interact. I'm not talking about being antisocial. Again, I mentioned earlier, I love people. I'm doing this to be with people, to get comments and feedback and have conversations. But when we talk about this last 18 months, COVID has impacted all of us in some form or fashion. You either can't get to the store, maybe because you're afraid of getting COVID yourself. Maybe you have some immune deficiencies or something of that nature, or you just don't like being in public at this point, right? There may be reasons. Maybe you disagree with having to wear a mask, and so you won't go because the grocery store says you have to wear a mask. Doesn't matter. Again, I'm not saying yay, nay, or any of that, right? What I am saying is that it being more self-sufficient would ease some of those pains, no matter which way it was. If you have some potatoes in your garden, you have some carrots, you have some corn, if you raise chickens and you're getting the eggs, and even if you really want to go ahead and harvest your own chickens, you can do that. Again, it's probably better food, it's healthier, but you're doing it yourself. So that self-sufficient part, I think, is really important. And again, one of the folks I follow that I would suggest you do too, he's under Self-Sufficient Meat. He's down in Australia, and a lot of things that he grows, I know I'm not going to be able to grow in our southeastern Idaho garden or my northern Utah garden. But how he builds things and his entertainment, his overall educational, phenomenal. Same for Gardner Scott, but he's in Colorado, so he's at least kind of has the same type of climate and weather we do. Number 9 is I love to feel the soil in my hands, right? The compost. Once it's composted pretty good. I don't know what to put it down there in the sludgy part when you're just making it, but just making compost is this is weird. It's one of the most exciting things for me that I can imagine. Maybe it is for you too, I don't know. But that's one of my big ones. That's one of the first things when we move that I'm going to set up are my compost bins. And I'm going to have 4 because I'm going to do it a little bit bigger because then it's kind of getting my personality again. But that's one of my things I'm doing. Okay, let me get down to the last primary reason. If you remember when I talked earlier, my very first one was to attract birds and other wildlife. That was a big 15%er, right? Out of this whole 100% of this big piece of pie, that took a major portion of all my reasons. This one takes also 15%. I would almost give it 20% because it's so important. And that is that gardening is analogous to life. Gardening, it's in TV, movies, art. It evolves with other things. Personal development. Our children, when we had them as infants, they are our seed. We planted them. We have them they come and they're very tender. They're totally dependent on us for water and for fertilizer. We don't call it that, right? We do call it water, but we call it nourishment. And we love them. I hear a lot of people about loving their plants and they talk to them. Nothing wrong with that. I talk to these dogs. What's the difference, right? Not much, I don't think. And so this analogy to life with our kids, with ourselves, we start as a small tender plant. We fertilize, we water, we weed. Oh, that's a huge piece. We need to weed ourselves. We need to weed our children. As we weed ourselves, meaning look at ourselves, think about what we're doing good today and what we're not doing so good today, and keep doing the good things and either stop the bad ones or fix them, right? Change it in a way. Whatever it is, we all have that. And then, what comes after all of that at the end? It's the harvest. The harvest with us, with our children, is our actions. It's our thoughts. It's how we serve other people. It's about who we are in life. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that in general, because that allows, with gardening being analogous to life, I get to have all kinds of subjects we talk about on this channel, including the 7 habits of highly effective people. You know, it's what can you do for yourself? What can you do, you know, that you're dependent on someone else to do for you? And what can you do with other people? Interdependency. So I'm going to talk a lot about that. And guess what? That is one of the areas where I'm an expert. I've created 7 habit presentations, PowerPoint presentations, and trained that for 20 plus years. I've tried to live it myself. Sometimes living's a little bit harder than the teaching and the preaching, as it were, but it also helps remind me to get back to it. So the teaching isn't, again, just for you or for me to give you my words of wisdom, but it's more for me to relearn and to rehear as well, right? So that's part of it. I am going to do some product reviews. You know, it could be clothing, it could be some of the tools that I use, those types. All right, so that is, again, the other top 5, right? So we have a total now of 10 primary reasons. Let me mention a couple of the other real quick in passing of the secondary ones. I just turned 56 years old. That's in today's world. You know, I used to think that 55, 56 was old. Not anymore. That's not old. I'm young, man. What are you talking about? But as I get older, gardening is something that I can do. It'll help me to learn patience. I am not the most patient person in the world. In fact, I tell people oftentimes when I want something, I want it yesterday. Well, guess what? Gardening doesn't go on my calendar. It doesn't go on my time frame. It goes with Mother Nature. It goes with Mother Earth. It goes with the seasons, with how much sunshine is here at a given time and place. So I'm going to learn patience with that, and I think that'll help me. Another one is I want to expand my own palate when it comes to eating. I'm not just a potatoes and steak type guy. I love asparagus. I love some of the other vegetables. Like I mentioned before in the previous, I'm not a tomato fan, but if I could find a tomato that was sweet enough or something a little bit different, I'm willing to try it, especially if it came from my own garden. I'm probably not going to go to the store and buy something to eat that I don't think I'm going to like. It's just not how I'm going to do things. Two other ones, then I'm going to end this video. One of those is selling my produce. If I sell produce, that's not something I'm looking to do, to put up 10 up and be out every weekend trying to sell produce. This is not a money-making venture. However, you know, one of the things, I love pumpkins. That's one of the things that for some reason I do love, and I'd like to have a good-sized pumpkin patch. Again, that partially goes back to having a place that's inviting for my children and my grandchildren and our family and friends to come to, and they can go out in the fall and pick a pumpkin for Halloween, something of that nature, right? And I want to do the big ones, right, the jack-o'-lanterns, but I want to do the small ones that people just kind of put around as well. Well, after all that, if I have some extras, or if it's big enough and I can go sell some of those in the fall for a few Saturdays or something during the month, that's great. And that would help put money back into the garden. It is memories, right? It's setting new memories. It's things that I do remember. Being in the garden, like I think I mentioned in the past video with my family when I talked about it's in the blood, but that's different than the memories that I have of that too. And I do have those, and some of those are some phenomenal memories of my dad, my grandfather Paul, eating and watching my grandmother Mima do the snap beans. They'd sit on the porch and just snap for hours, it seemed like. It's a memory of when time was slower paced, when it was more relaxing. Maybe because some of that was because I was a kid, and that type thing. I don't know for sure, but again, that's probably really the final. So that's really my top 10. Whew, I went a lot of dog hair. I don't know if y'all can see it on the camera or not. As well as some additional secondary reasons. Why do you garden? What's your reasons? Make your comments down below. Let me know what your top 5 are, your top 10. If you think any of mine are crazy, especially if you have something that's not even close to one of mine, I'd love to hear that, and I will respond. If you have any questions, put those down there too. appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Click on that bell to be notified of future videos. We're going to try to do at least one a week. I'm going to try right now, at least maybe sometimes, to have two, because I do enjoy this. But I appreciate you doing it. Happy gardening. Love your plants. Love your gardening. Take care.